PJ is the retaining defending champion here. He knocked Gary off his perch, his Ian Rush style Liverpool perch last week, and has the opportunity to go. But we're into this is serious business now, lads. 4 big knockout games. We have a tiebreaker if needed. 2 from hurling. 2 finals in 2 provincial finals in the football. It's a quieter weekend. We'll actually be able to kind of take in the games and not have to be worried about everything else that's going on. So exciting stuff. The times have been named for the qualifiers next Saturday for the hurling qualifiers. We'll start with that. 2 p.m. Saturday in Semple Stadium, Thurles, is Galway versus Waterford. PJ, I forget every week what my method is, so I'm going to go with a new one this week that is I'm sticking with from now on. Champion decides. Do you want the honour, or do you want to hand it over to Gary?
I think I'll go first this time. Yeah.
Okay, you're going to go first. Okay, so we're talking about Galway Waterford, 2 p.m. Saturday in Thurles. Waterford have had a weird year. They were well beaten by Clare despite a weird comeback they've had. They're the only team that's having a break in this entire championship, and then they came and were cut cold almost against Laois, came through it and won it. But Galway, 1 match against Dublin, 2-week break themselves, and now Waterford up. This is it's funny because there's going to be so much talk about Cork and Clare. It's like these 2 teams are just so off the beaten track almost this season.
It is a very hard game to call. I mean, you really don't know where these 2 teams are in terms of form. Waterford got a real scare against Laois. It was a 5-point win when people were probably thinking it's going to be closer to 25.
And they were 2 down, 3-4 minutes to go in normal time, maybe about 8 or 9 minutes overall.
Laois had a similar performance in the qualifiers last year when they got to within a point of Clare. So maybe we shouldn't be that surprised, I guess. But it was still because Waterford had Clare's back, who you thought they need to get these guys back if they are to kind of continue progressing. They got Conor Prunty back, who's a very good fullback, and Jamie Barron kind of came off the bench. It was still a pretty disappointing performance. I think we have to see some kind of response from Galway this weekend because they were abysmal against Dublin. They did not turn up whatsoever. They haven't looked. It was especially disappointing given how good they looked during the league.
Yeah.
Galway won this game during the league by 8 points. It was a really, really high scoring game. It was 7 goals, 51 points. If we got a game like that this weekend, it'd be something else. I have a sneaking feeling that Galway are going to be favourites here, and I'm going to say Galway -2.
Okay. Bearing in mind, I'm going with what we were offered today, by the way, so there is a chance that this changes. These games only drawn this morning. If you see a different one, I picked these at about an hour ago, so they're accurate as of on air time. But you say Galway -2.
Yeah, I know yourself and Shane were talking about it earlier, Mick, in terms of do you want the break or do you want the games? And it's kind of a weird one because there's been so few games this year that, Waterford, even though they were disappointing against Laois and only won by such a small margin, it could actually stand to them this week. And whereas Galway have kind of been less sitting for the last couple of weeks. So it's hard to know. I think Galway will be favourites. I think because of the result at the weekend between Waterford and Laois, I think there will be more than -2 as well. So I'm just going to say -3 for Galway.
Reveal it there, please, Maestro. It is Galway -3. Yeah. Gary's off the mark, and a big chance. That's for that says Mayo versus Galway there, lads. It is a mistake, but it's not a mistake that reveals anything. Don't read too much into that. We will be getting to that game later. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Staying on to hurling then. Cork versus Clare. I said to Shane that Cork never beat Clare. I did actually forget the All-Ireland final replay of 2013 for a second. But since then, they played 3 times the championship that year, by the way. Clare only won one of them. Obviously, one of them was a draw. And since then, Clare haven't beaten Cork in the championship. They've lost 2 Munster finals. They've lost a qualifier. They've lost various Munster championship first round matches. And they did. Sorry, that's not. They did beat them in a round robin. Actually, Clare were already out a couple of years ago. But other than that, Clare have a really bad record against Galway. This is in Gaelic rounds at 4:30. I knew the second that Clare were knocked out by Tipperary that they're matching if they beat Wexford, they're matching the qualifiers to be up against the first lines test. But There you go. At least it's not a direct comparison. I got the whole second half of the Lions match in anyway. Gary, you're up here.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one to call. Like, Clare are coming off the back of the games. Like, I know people are saying Wexford are poor, like they're not that impressed by them this year, but they did like come within a puck of a ball of beating Kilkenny there, you know, in a Leinster semi-final, and everyone are raving about Kilkenny. So like I thought that was a really impressive win for Clare at the weekend, especially with how comfortable they looked towards the end, but like even accounting for the late goal or whatever. Yeah. Cork again, you know, they seem to always be, everyone is kind of expecting more out of them, and they just continually come up short. In saying that, I don't even know who's the favourite in this game is really. I would say it's possibly Clare, so I'm going to say Clare -1, but I could be way off on that.
Yeah, the hard one to call. You wonder how well will Clare recover from that game at the weekend. Cork, I'd say Cork players would have been spending the entire weekend in a darkened room, nowhere near the sun, at all. I remember a few years ago doing an interview with Michael Fennelly after he retired, and he said one of the things he was looking forward to after retirement was actually getting to go to a barbecue and enjoy it properly. So he didn't have to be like sitting in the shade somewhere for the entire afternoon. Like one of the things you never think about. That footballers and hurlers have to do this. Clare were great. It was like that first quarter from Clare was brilliant against Wexford at the weekend. Like the B of the bang, they were gone. Or they were like 11 points at one stage. Yeah. Got a bit nervy the second half, but like they were quite impressive. Like 10 different scores, not relying on Tony Kelly like completely. Like, you know, Tony Kelly had like a decent game, but like it wasn't like this barnstorming Tony Kelly game where you're totally relying on him. Like Colin Malone scoring 1-1, that Aidan McCarthy, David Reedy, and Ryan Taylor getting 3 points each. Like that's like really good from the Clare forward. Like you have to be like very optimistic about very, very positive about this Clare team, I think. Like Aidan McCarthy, I think, could be young hurler of the year contender. Like definitely young hurler of the year contender.
He's superb. Yeah.
Other thing, like Dave McInerney coming off the bench, like you would think, like such an important player for Clare, you would think he could play a greater part this weekend. Cork against Limerick, like it was like a weird game because like they could have been much closer than 8 points to Limerick, because there were a few moments I thought in that like second half when Limerick looked a little bit leggy, and Cork just like a little bit more composure. Like they could have gotten closer. Maybe they wouldn't have won it, but they definitely could have pushed Limerick a lot further. I think Cork are going to be favourites here because Gary said Clare -1. I'm going to see Cork -1, but I do kind of fancy Clare, but I'm going to have to say Cork -1.
So once again, PJ didn't go for the scratch that would have like just gone with the one more, which does leave the possibility of a draw. It's a brave move, and it's a brave move that is rewarded because he's absolutely right. Cork -1. Yeah, PJ fancies Clare. Shane McGrath fancies Clare. I'm a little bit scared now with all this this Clare loving, but look, we'll see what happens next week. I would worry so much about their legs, but look, I would say actually the point I was actually going to make was there was parts in all 3 games that Clare played this year where they were unplayable. I don't think anybody could have lived with them. And they were various lengths as to how long those spells lasted for. I think if you can get that spell lasting into a 20 to 30 minute period, they might just be out of sight, you know. So that's what they'll have to look for next week before the other team settles. Let's move on to the football then, lads. It's 1-1 here. Both of you have broke serve with exact picks. And let's get on to the 2 provincial finals. Mayo and Galway, just talking to Morris about it there. Historic Croke Park, first ever Connacht final played in Dublin. And the 2 big teams are the ones that are going to meet. Gary, no. Pete, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's me.
I'm terrible at this Guess the Handicaps thing. It's too long a show.
I'm up first. Like, you know, Mayo, like the response to losing Cillian O'Connor, been pretty good. I mean, like, you know, as good as you could have expected. Like 67-point total winning margin. Sorry, 67-point total score against Sligo and Leitrim, won by total of 44 points. You know, in terms of like preparation for a game like this, having lost a player like Cillian O'Connor, like it's probably what you want. Like Ryan O'Donoghue looks pretty good on, like, reliable on the frees. Like Yeah, it is just hard to know, like, given the opposition, what way they're in. But you would think that they would be confident. Like I said earlier, that Mayo footballers will never lack confidence, I think, and they will always think they can win this game. They won this game by a point last year, like in what will be, you would expect to be like very different conditions. Like,
yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, like the Galway's win against Roscommon, like that was Paul Joyce's first championship win. Incredibly, you think like it's
his first match was a final because they got a bye in the semi-final to Sligo last year, and then it was all knockout, which is amazing.
Yeah, they look pretty good in the second half. I mean, like they have some very good footballers. Like Matthew Tierney looks great. Like, they look like a super footballer, someone you could like build around for like the next decade. Paul Kelly was really good in that game as well. And like Damien Comer was back in that game. Who we know I think it was Damien Comer's first championship game in 3 years. Incredibly.
Wow.
Like we know with a wrecking ball. I think Paul Choice has said that they have a clean bill of health, which would make it think Shane Walsh is going to be back. Like I just don't trust Galway though. I just can never feel like I can trust them. Whereas I do trust Mayo.
Yeah.
But what way will this? I think Galway will probably be favourites though. So I'm going to say Galway -1, but like I wouldn't trust them at all. I would give Mayo a good chance to win, but I would go to Galway -1.
Galway -1. Interesting. And that's the Cillian O'Connor kind of factor there, I suppose. But yeah, it's funny you're saying it. Like the way we trust a team like that is them going out and winning the big game, and this could be the one that they do it in, and then we're all excited about Galway. That it's funny how big that's how big this match is. Like, we can't trust them, we couldn't bet on them, so on and so forth. But they go out and beat Mayo, and they're like, "Oh, this is a tasty Galway team." Who have they got next?
Yeah, like Mayo coming into it a bit undercooked. I know, like, great to get a run out in the 2 games they've had so far, but like, what did they learn from it? Really, I'd say very little. And also in terms of Division 2, although we always say how competitive Division 2 is, they haven't played those top teams at all this year. Whereas Galway were in Division 1, albeit it didn't go as well as they would have hoped, but at least they were being tested every week. And that was a dirty day against Roscommon, against a team who were dogged and just wouldn't die. So even though they weren't great, so that could stand to them. Saying that, I think Mayo will be favourites for this game. I would say, just because it's Mayo, public money is always on Mayo. I could go dirty and go down, just say scratch, but PJ didn't do it to me the last time, so I'll say Mayo -1.
And once again, rewarded for the bravery and takes a lead here. PJ, you can still bring it to the playoff though, because we've got the Munster final. We're in your neck of the woods here for Kerry and Cork in Killarney. Darren O'Sullivan, lads, saying last week that Cork had no chance. I'm not saying he's wrong, Gary, but it was a brave thing for him to say. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, Darren, are you sure you want to say that?"
And after working with PJ for the last nearly 3 years, I can tell you that's a very rare thing that a Kerry man will come out and say that ahead of a game against Cork in the championship. But yeah, like, Jesus, surely to God, you'd imagine Kerry won't be caught by Cork again this year. Whatever about winning on Ireland and stuff, they'd be like, "Jesus, lads, we can't get beaten by Cork in the championship again, coming in with a much better team." I know I won't do too much talking on this one because I know PJ will want to do that. But I like, pick your number. It's not going to be like some of the mad handicaps we'd seen with Dublin and stuff and some of the hurling games so far. But Kerry -8, maybe. I'm going to go. I think it could be too low, but I'm going to go -8.
Oh, PJ.
God, that's very high.
He's done you dirty.
That feels very high.
Gary has nailed it, though. So, while I will let you talk about Kerry in the Munster final, there's no point in wasting time here because you gave up. You decided to go first, and the possibility was always there that the last one would be just decided by Gary just nailing it. An unbelievable call there. Gary's got 3 out of 4, and he's champion once again. Kerry won't let you down in the way you've let yourself down there, though, PJ, will they?
Have I let myself down? I probably have.
I don't know. It was a pretty good performance by the opposition there, I have to say.
Yeah, to be fair, like I actually made the Galway versus Mayo pick. I changed my mind and went Galway -1, even though I had Mayo -1 written down here.
Oh, no.
I talked myself out of it. Cork haven't won a Munster title since 2012. Like what?
That's amazing.
I like that. It is shocking. They've lost 7 finals, 6 of them to Kerry, the one last year to Tip. I mean, for Cork football, that it really is like a shambolic. Like it is going to change in the future. Like they do have some really good like young footballers coming through, and you would think in the future. I know if anyone watched the Cork and Kerry under-20 game, like that would what a fabulous game of football. Like just like there was a load of under-20 games on this week on TG4. Watch all of them. They really are great.
Hurling and football, yeah.
Like I think that Cork has some very good players coming through. Like you would think, like at some point in the future, Keith Ricken is going to manage the Cork footballers, or maybe he's just happy, like kind of bringing them through. But like you would like to think
he's developing men, PJ.
Yeah.
If anyone didn't see his interview after the game on the week, you can check it out. It's on Twitter. You find it on Balls.ie, etc. So, but definitely don't let that go by without watching it. It was a phenomenal interview.
Like you would go to war with Keith Ricken. Like what? Like he really is this inspirational figure, and you would think like with someone like him involved, there's definitely like a better future in Cork football. Like they're not. I don't think they're going to win this game though. Like they were fine against Limerick. I think they were. I think Ron McCarthy described them as workmanlike, which is kind of like fair enough. Not going to be enough to beat Kerry. Like from a Kerry perspective, there are things to maybe not worry about, mind the concerns. Like in the second quarter against Clare, they only between halftime and the first water break, they only scored 2 points. Like they kind of like really ramped it up afterwards. They weren't particularly good in the third quarter against Tipperary either. So we haven't really seen a full 70-minute performance from Kerry yet, even though like they've still been impressing people. Against Tip just gave up the kick out. Like they didn't contest it at all. So you wouldn't like. I would like going forward, like presuming Kerry win this game, you would like to see them get tested in those scenarios in this game. And just to see what's the composition of the Kerry forward line, because Darren Moynihan was out injured the last day Micheál Burns came in, and Darren Moynihan had been like really, really impressive. But Killian Spillane came off the bench and kicked like three good points. He's really making a case for himself.
Yeah. Killian Spillane's in danger of just becoming the super sub, isn't he? Like, and he almost does so well, so consistently off the bench. But you wonder, are they getting enough out of him by always having him in that position? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like. He's he to me he's like a next level Barry John Keane. Like he probably did.
He's getting 3 points instead of 2.
Yeah, he's coming on in All-Ireland final and scoring a goal as he did. Yeah, look, it's just like there is so much competition in that Kerry forward line. It'll be interesting to see what Peter Keane goes with in this game. And like I'm sure he probably had them locked in a room in Currans watching that Munster semi-final last year about 50 times. I hope he watched it himself as well a lot, because he had a lot to do with that performance. So, look, I think like Kerry got to win this game, but I would be very positive about the future of Cork football beyond this.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Gary, it sounds to me like Peter Keane could win the next 5 All-Irelands, and there'll be Kerry folk still kind of just a little bit pissed off about what happened last November.
Look, they're not used to losing to Cork anymore, so in fairness, you can understand why.
Yeah. No, not that the point wasn't well made, PJ. It's just there definitely seemed like there was a little bit of like, I hope he sat in a room and watched it himself.
I really hope
delivering food to old people during COVID. He should have been watching more football. Okay, that's Guess The Handicaps. Gary has regained his throne. We'll be looking back on all 4 of those games on next week's show. We'll have Darren O'Sullivan back on with us as well, as he has been just coincidentally after all the Kerry matches so far this year, but he'll be back on with us next week. Of course, stay tuned to Balls.ie all week for more GAA Embedded content as we look forward to what's going to be a really, really good weekend of GAA. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, be it on YouTube or on the podcast, and we'll be back with you next week.